Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Counselor's Office. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor, and we are back with another episode of the Counselor Reacts. Helldivers was beloved by many. In fact, it was an indie game that popped out that people absolutely loved and adored. In fact, I was almost encouraged to go buy it myself by even some of my friends. I never did because I've been slaving away on Destiny currently, but I have been keeping up with what's been going on with Helldivers. Absolutely crazy how something with so much success and people were even saying Game of the Year suddenly has nosedived into oblivion because of PlayStation. It's crazy. It's crazy. Escape of Tarkov just had controversy with doing scummy, scammy stuff. And then here we have a game where PlayStation decides, you know what? We want a piece of that pie. So I'm going to watch a video that was populating on Twitter. It is Rev Says Desu. I'm going to say I have seen a snippet of it because obviously I want to make sure it's okay for me to watch. But secondly, I didn't realize I've never watched a VTuber before, and I literally thought this was a girl. It's a dude, unless they identify as a girl, in which case I don't want to be disrespectful. But I've never watched VTubers, so it really threw me off. But I kind of want to make like a Destiny VTuber or something, just for the fun of it. Anyways, Helldivers. That's what we're here for.
Hey, what's up, guys? Rev here. So I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of the immense level of drama and controversy surrounding Helldivers 2 recently, and I covered some of this in yesterday's video where I went over the backlash that Helldivers 2 and Sony have been facing due to some...
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the picture. It is overwhelmingly negative. People changed a lot of their positive ratings, and it tanked. It was so bad.
Some recent changes they were trying to implement. Now, when I made this title, Helldivers 2 is finished, I was not exaggerating. At the time, things were looking really grim for this franchise.
It's kind of ironic that a game that it talks about liberty and standing together and everyone coming together against a common enemy, and somehow Sony managed to make that an actual reality, like in life, because everyone who loved this game and was conditioned to have that mentality actually stood together and was like, nope, we are standing against PlayStation. And yeah, this is the result. Isn't that funny how that works out?
However, I am happy to announce that that narrative has switched in less than 24 hours, and I believe that Helldivers 2 is now saved because Sony admitted defeat and handed gamers a much-deserved W. Now, before we get into the recent updates, let's take 1 minute to remind ourselves how we got here. So on May 3rd, Helldivers 2 announced that PC players will have to link their Steam account to a PlayStation Network account to continue accessing Helldivers 2.
Now, that is pro-typical of different games, especially like, let's say Epic Games, right? You link your Epic Games or Origin. Like, I know playing, I hate it, by the way, but like Battlefield, you have to have in Steam, you're signing into Steam and you have to sign into the Origin account BS. It's so freaking annoying and stupid. And I hate it. I hate when games do that. So that's probably some of the reason why people are also upset. It's not the reason, but yes, it's pro-typical. But what's not pro-typical is what they did. And for those who are tuning in who have no idea what's going on, essentially, this is a PlayStation game that is also on PC. And it was not required, even though it technically was, that you make a PlayStation account, like link your information, to be able to play it. Well, they never enforced that from the beginning. Not only that, but they sold it in countries that you could not link your accounts to. That's right. There's certain countries, like 100 and something countries, you cannot set up a PlayStation account. So effectively, people who should not be buying the games was buying the game and enjoying the game. I don't know if that's what their Rev is going to say, but they're essentially selling it to people that is going to lose access to it. And that's pretty scummy. Not only that, but a lot of people can't get refunds, especially on Steam, if you played over 2 hours. So it's like, haha, we have your money and now you're screwed. Or unless you use VPN. But as you can see, massive drop.
Now, this was immediately met with negative responses, getting review bombed, to the point where Helldivers 2 on Steam had an overwhelmingly negative recent set of reviews, and the overall all-time set of reviews was now mixed. Going forward, a lot of players cited their concerns about setting up a PlayStation Network account because
yeah, I'm not linking my account to PSN. April, hackers access to personal data, 77 million Sony PlayStation Network users. May 2011, 25, Sony Pictures hacked. Hackers steal 100 terabytes of data. Hacker groups access Sony's social media. Sony investigates. Sony notifies. Yes. So Sony is probably one of the most hacked gaming companies. It is a literal joke how freaking much Sony gets, hacked. So I can 100% understand why people don't want their information hacked. I generally believe as long as you don't have like identifiable information, like you can use a random email. Don't give your actual location of where you live. Don't give your real number unless you have to. But outside of that, I mean, you could use PlayStation top-up cards to use a store. Like, you don't have to put in a credit card or your PayPal. You can just buy top-up cards. It is more of an inconvenience, but at the same time, you can do as much as possible to keep as much information from yourself away from PlayStation. You also can use fake names as well. You don't have to use your real name. And you don't have to use your real birthday either.
Sony has had...
Ask any kid that's skirted around age restrictions for like TikTok and all these other accounts that they shouldn't have access to.
Many data breaches. Also, in order to create a PSN account, you had to live in about, less than 24 countries in the world because the vast...
177. That is right. Sony has now delisted Helldivers 2 from being purchased on Steam. Oh my God. But why? People are saying that you've won. No, you've lost. Sony may have reversed it where you don't need accounts. And that's great. I'm glad that you reversed it because that's what he's going to eventually say. I already know, plot twist. I already know what happens. The end game is Sony reverses their decision. However, this isn't a win. This is a loss. It's like you don't need to connect. You don't need a PlayStation account to play this on PC. But the rest of you who couldn't play because of that, you still can't play. I'm not going to flip off the screen, but you know exactly. It's like a big FU to 177 countries. So much for liberty. Why though? Why? You know what that tells me? It tells me that they might try to reinforce this later. Why would you go and block this in 177 countries if it's not required? It's because it's not required right now. That's right. I don't think the battle is over.
Majority of countries don't even have access or the ability to create a PSN account in the first place. And on top of that, among the few that can, a lot of countries in Europe, like Germany and the United Kingdom, for example, players would have to submit facial scans or government IDs to create a PSN account.
Yeah, so for people who don't live in America, that's effed up. You know what you do? You need to go get a fake ID. Trust me, order one from America, make a fake ID or whatever. I would 100% like that is, I'm reminded why, even though America can be a dumpster fire, that this is fantastic. That I don't have to give my personal information, like my actual driver's license, to a greedy company who isn't even using the money to make sure that they are safe and secure with my information. Whereas anyone could hack and steal it which has happened multiple times already. So yeah, I'm sorry. If you don't live in America, you're definitely, PlayStation is taking a dump on your face right now.
And on top of that, when players initially bought Helldivers 2 months ago, the rule at Sony did not require...
And yes, I'm aware that it's not Sony's fault, it's governmental, which is another reason why I'm glad I'm in America. Because, listen, I'm less worried about my government requiring me to have a ID to play a video game, because they let people just buy guns without an ID, mostly.
Players to create a PSN account to link with their Steam account. However, after the May 3rd changes, that rule would also change, saying that you may be required to link your Steam account to a PSN account to play a PC release. Now, despite the absolutely terrible optics of that situation, Sony-sucking corporate dick riders would continue.
I don't want to hear anyone ever get mad that I call people ball fondlers, especially Bungie ball fondlers, because he took it to the extreme. No holding back. Rev held back nothing. Corporate defenders. So you're just going to stop playing Helldivers 2 because you don't want to create a PSN account, which literally only takes 2 minutes? Yes. Yes. There's a reason why I really don't play Battlefield. It's because I don't want to have to sign into Steam and then sign into an Origin account. And I don't want to have to load up another browser or launcher to play one game. I should not have to have Steam and this. Like, what's the point of buying it in Steam if I'm just going to have to use the other launcher anyways? So I don't play Battlefield, outside of the fact that Battlefield sucks balls. At least the newer one does. And it sucks because I love Battlefield 4. But it's the same principle. It's also the additive aspect that it was not required, even though it says it was not, it was disabled and not held to the same degree. And so people were playing the game. Again, it was also sold in countries, 177 countries where it should have never been sold. So yes, people are upset, and rightly so.
To defend Sony and criticize PC gamers for calling out this ridiculous change.
Mostly PlayStation players. Xbox gamers get it because their games have been on PC for the longest time. It is just pony bros who are like, their identity is PlayStation. They don't want PlayStation to take an L because the console war, which in my opinion, if you were invested into the console war, PC Master Race, even with this crap, it's still PC Master Race. Because, yeah, our games look much better than the 30 frames.
However, these defenders are taking a massive L, just like Sony is taking a massive L right now. So, last night, PlayStation's official account announced this. Helldiver fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linkings for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans.
Now, I do want to say right now that I'm not defending PlayStation, but to a certain degree, this is not 100% their fault. This is like 95% their fault. 5% is the developer of Helldivers. Is it Skill Up? I don't know what the PlayStation is the publisher, and they obviously required that you need to set up a PlayStation account. However, that was stated, like, when you first got the game, it was already on Steam saying this is required. And a lot of people are like using that as like, hey, you're dumb because you didn't pay attention that it's required. And the counter argument is, you're right, it said that, but it wasn't being reinforced. And the reason why it wasn't being reinforced is because the developers shut it off. They turned it off. Now, obviously, it's PlayStation that wanted it on in the first place. It was probably part of the requirement for the game is for them to have an account with PlayStation. It was probably already agreed upon, but the developers decided, nah. And I believe, if I'm mistaken, if it's true, I read something about they disabled it because then it was causing server issues, and then no one would be able to play the game. So they turned it off temporarily. Again, I think that's 100% the developers, not 100%, that is 5% developers' fault for releasing the game in a state that made it seem like it was optional. Now, the other 95% is PlayStation's fault, because even on their website, it said it is optional. PC games, it's optional. And then they changed it. They changed the wording and they took that out. So they pulled the Tarkov, they pulled a BSG, Battlestate Gaming's, and they changed the wording. Now, to what I believe now is it's returned. It's like in their website, you could see that it says PC games are optional to have an account, which obviously that's not true, because Ghost of Tsushima, the developers announced that if you want to play the multiplayer, you have to make an account. So that's not optional. That's very deceptive. And if you're saying the single player, and they did say the single player is not required. So if you're saying features that are multiplayer aren't required, but you're not stating that under your website, PlayStation is being deceptive, right? They're giving you half the cookie, not the whole cookie.
Obviously, a huge and deserved W for gamers. And you can see the reception of this has been very, very positive. Only hours into the morning, you can already see the reviews. The recent ones have climbed from almost single digits to 45% mixed, and the overall all-time set of ratings has climbed up to 61%, despite being below 50%.
It's good. It's a good change, but it's kind of like, yeah, what about the other 177 countries, though?
Only yesterday. This was very well received by gamers who feel like their voice was finally heard. Now, before you say, oh, W PlayStation, this isn't a W for PlayStation. This is a W for gamers. PlayStation is simply correcting their own mistakes, and it's like the first step of many they have to do. If there is a mile that PlayStation and Sony has to do to make the reputation better with gamers, this was the first couple of steps, okay?
And they're already in hot water, especially with the Stellar Blade community, because Sony caused the developer who didn't want to censor things to censor things. I think that's pretty scummy when you have a publisher that goes behind your back and forces you to do something, even though you've advertised something. And guess who gets the blame? The developer of the game, not the publisher. And in this case, Sony actually is backtracking. But will they do that for Stellar Blade? Probably not.
They have a long way to go to earn the trust back of gamers. And also seeing a large volume of feedback being used to influence Sony into making changes. Wow, that should be encouraging to gamers. What about other games?
Yeah, it is a win in that regard for gamers that PlayStation actually budged. Now, if this was Nintendo, you would be lucky. You would be so freaking lucky, because Nintendo does not care. Nintendo is shut up, give me your money.
Games that have been censored, like Stellar Blade. There's petitions out there with tens of thousands of signatures to restore the changes. That might be used as a bargaining chip to make Sony go back on other bad decisions that they made to games like Stellar Blade. Now, of course,
we'll see.
Just like with the announcement of this account linking change, people are still trying to defend Sony.
Facts people keep ignoring. Sony created, owns the Helldiver IP. No, I don't believe so. They're the publisher, but they are not the ones who created it. Sony is the only owner in history of Helldivers. Again, I think you're mistaken. Sony has funded Arrowhead for over 10 years. Okay, it wasn't Skill Up, it was Arrowhead, sorry. For 10 years, 8 years with no game release. Therefore, without Sony, you're not playing Helldivers. I'm pretty sure Xbox might have funded them if they went to Xbox, because Xbox is looking for indies. And in fact, that's kind of one of the big things about Xbox is they are investing more in indie games, especially like they invested in Power World. We'll see if that pays off, Captain. It's a great game. I would like to see what it is polished. But let's not act like Sony is the only one that's interested in indie games.
You see posts like this saying, facts people keep ignoring. Sony created and owns the Helldivers IP. Sony is the only owner in the history of Helldivers. Sony has funded Arrowhead for over 10 years, 8 years with no game released. Therefore, without Sony, you're not playing Helldivers. What is the point that this person is trying to make? You could use the same logic to say Sony doesn't exist without customers, and thank God for once they actually listened. This is very strange astroturfing of these arguments, and another desperate...
Again, I mean, Sony did not create Helldivers. The publishers just publish. They advertise the game, and then they sell the game. The developers are the ones that owned it. Like, yes, Sony technically does own it because it's under the umbrella, but the ones that really own it are the ones that make it. I know it on like very strict, people are like, but they bought it, so it's theirs. Without Arrowhead, they wouldn't have Helldivers. So there you go. Here's your cookie.
Attempt to defend Sony. Now, in the replies, this user raises a good point. So they say this. Now, can everyone quit taking this out on the Helldivers 2 devs? They ended up in the crossfire for this, and it wasn't fair to them as they were doing what they were contractually obligated to do. And this is a very fair point. The only thing that the Helldivers 2 devs are responsible for is making a really good game. And it was unfortunate that they...
Well, they're maybe not the devs, but the people in charge are the ones that also get the brunt of the 5% because they're the ones that made the bad decision to not really emphasize, we're turning this on so you can play the game, but we will enable it very soon. Hey guys, we want you to know, I'm glad you're enjoying it, but we're going to have to force you to make an account. Also, actually, I'm backtracking. Sony's also to blame because Sony is the publisher. They're the ones responsible for allowing games to be sold to 177 countries. That's a PlayStation fault. That's not even on Arrowhead. They're just the developers. They're not the publishers. I just realized that. I'm backtracking what I said. PlayStation is definitely taking that fat L.
They got caught in the crossfire, and also ultimately the game they produced is getting negative reviews because of something that Sony is doing.
Yeah, that sucks.
However, beyond just the devs, there's other parties that are responsible at Arrowhead, and we'll talk about the CEO in a minute because I believe that he is somewhat culpable for some of these negative things that have happened. But the main focus should be on the community managers and the mods for Helldivers and Arrowhead who stoked the flames and made this situation so much worse by lashing out at people who had an issue with this account linking change.
My advice for anyone out there who's a developer who will probably never see my video, but you never know. You never know who watches your videos, right? It is Destiny, Bungie developers have done this. Diablo 4 developers have done that. Hell, we have the meme. Don't you guys have phones? Don't you guys have phones? That's a meme. That will be immortalized. It will last longer than Diablo Immortal because that meme will live on forever. When 30 years from now, when I'm walking around in a cane or whatever, my kids will be memeing, don't you guys have phones? Because community managers and people who are speaking about their game, who attack their community, will always take the fat finger and L. It's so cringe to try to argue with your consumer. This isn't like Walmart where you go up and you argue with the cashier about pricing. Well, I don't think that the price of your milk should be that. It needs to be this instead, even though the cashier has zero control. Whereas you, the developer, have 100% control over your game and how you react to the community when you done F up. And they did F up because they 100% had control of the standards that they set when they turned off the requirement to sign into a PlayStation account. They made that choice. They made that decision. And they let it ride for way too long. Also, I don't want to believe for any second that anyone who cares about their community and their game is going to just overlook the fact that 177 countries have been allowed to buy your game by PlayStation or Sony, and you don't feel obligated to say, hey, you need to refund these people. Stop that. Don't sell it to them. You can't tell me you did not know that there's 177 countries that you can't sign into a PlayStation account. That tells me you're not doing your due diligence and making sure that you are supporting your consumers. It's stupid.
So we talked a lot about Spitz in this last video I made yesterday. He is a community.
I feel like Sony is going to be firing people, by the way, in the community manager realm for this game.
Manager who initially mocked a lot of people who were upset about this account leaking change when it was announced. However, credit where credit is due. While a lot of other community managers privated their account and literally ran away when this crisis was happening, Spitz would admit that they went too far with their previous comments, that they underestimated just how far all of this goes, and then even encouraged gamers to go leave negative reviews on Helldivers 2 to make their voices heard, and even encourage people to request refunds. This was a very...
there's a part of me that just feels like maybe they mocked and they really kind of stoked the flames intentionally. They knew what they were doing because they did not like what PlayStation was trying to force them to do. And they wanted to start their mini revolution, right? We're against PlayStation. Only you can give us liberty. And I'm just going to trigger as many people in the community as possible so it becomes such a big issue that PlayStation has to cave to them. Because as a community manager, I can imagine that no one gives a crap about your personal opinion, especially Sony, because they care about money. And if the money isn't flowing or is in jeopardy, then they'll listen to that. But as a community manager, you probably are the bottom of the barrel of what people give a crap about, especially when it comes to what the community wants. They only care about money. Most gaming companies care about the money more. And Sony is no different.
Very bold change. Whether it was authentic or not, at least it took some balls to make this statement and to change their narrative so quickly once they saw the backlash of center. But these radicals have...
I'm kind of blitzing through a little bit of it. Falsely claims I sent people tactics CMs. All right, so it looks like we're talking about people. Mentioned my name is banned from Helldivers Discord. They're blaming me for their own PR mess. Hey, I wasn't the one that required PSN accounts. You can blame me all you want. Can confirm. So, yeah, what it seems like is their PR has been going down the toilet. Community managers are really effing up in this situation. I do have a part to play. I'm not blameless in all this. It was my decision to disable accounts linking at launch so that players could play the game. I did not ensure players were aware of the requirements, and we didn't talk about it enough. We knew for about 6 months before launch that it would be mandatory. Again, you can't be telling me that you had 6 months and you didn't hey, we're about to sell this to 177 countries who can't even play it after we enable it. Sony is definitely scummy, but my God, this right here, this is not acceptable. Like, you allowed people to buy the game that should never have been allowed to buy the game. I'm just telling you, like, until you allow those 177 players to play the game or buy the game, because right now there's no reason they can't, right? It's not required. They changed it to where it's not required. So why would you unlist it for these people? Because my cynical hat is they're going to try to do it again. They're going to try to push for this later after the community has simmered down, or maybe the game isn't as big or popular, and they're just going to, or they're going to try to incentivize in some other way later, which honestly, if they just did that, say, hey, you get this special item or this special gun by signing up. If they made it completely optional, they had some good reward, they might have been lucky enough to get a good pocket of people. No one would have bat an eye. But in my opinion, I don't think this is a W. I think this is a fat. I mean, it is a W, but it's also still an L because, again, 177 countries just took. Not only were they told, hey, we're not making anyone have to make a PlayStation account anymore, but you guys, F you. You can't do anything anymore. It's crazy. I don't know if they mention it. I don't see the Arrowhead CEO replying to the same woman who thinks the United Nations is making your games woke and is making Pepe Sylvia boards about it. If more people were full-throated talking about these, I don't know what's going on. For record, she has an issue with a CEO saying thank you for a civil question. If you'd recall, her own questions towards a different CEO were met with CEO saying she misrepresented him this weekend. I'm not sure what full. I don't know. I would have to watch the rest of you. I don't want to go over time. It is a good analysis. I think this is a great video. I will give it a like and I will give it a subscriber because I'm interested to see what else is talked about this game. So I'm going to keep up. Helldivers. If you don't give a crap, you continue to play the game. I don't know if I want to play the game based on principle. I hear good things about it, but there's so much going on that it's not like I need to play it right now. So I'm going to let it cook. And honestly, again, tinfoil hat, I still think the fact that they banned 177 countries implies they're going to cook something up to get those accounts on PlayStation. My analysis of that, let me know in the comments down below what you think. I think the situation is just crap because of Sony, but let's not just act like the Arrowhead company is the developer is innocent. They are 6 months. There's no way that you did not know in 6 months you didn't think about all this. And then you chose to turn it off. These were choices they made. And in my opinion, they don't deserve my money because anyone that isn't thinking about their overall consumer, especially if you're allowing people who should not be buying the game to buy the game, nah, not for me, Chief. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, the link to the video will be in the description so you can watch it, give it a like, follow, whatever, BB. I'm going to go now. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Adios.